An immigration bill that adds billions in spending with the promise down the road it'll make up for it in savings. If that sounds a whole lot like the healthcare law pitch, well, save it. Because to hear Katie Pavlich tell it, the problem is the spending behind it, all of it, and no one seems to ever get a handle on any of it. Joining Katie, we have Scottie Hughes and Richard Benjamin. So, Katie, your fear is we just dig a deeper hole.
Absolutely. Anytime we see these things come out of Washington, D.C., especially when they're bills that are more than 1,000 pages long, we see the price tag being huge with the promise of spending cuts later and an economic return later. But the problem, especially with the Gang of Eight legislation that's getting voted on, or that got voted on in the Senate, is that it only reduces illegal immigration by 25%. So on top of costing us money now, they're not taking into account the costs of 75% of illegal immigration not being fixed and the cost to our local jurisdictions or local law enforcement and to our healthcare system.
Scottie?
Well, it's real simple. And the Republicans are caving on this issue basically because they don't have the guts to stand up and do what's right. They believe, just like the Democrats, that they can sit there and buy votes. And this is the same policy that the Democrats have been doing for decades. And all of a sudden, the Republicans think that by appealing to these demographics, by giving them these type of votes, that they're going to be able to get those votes persuaded to the Republican side. I think they need a reality check, Neil.
You know, there is a commonality to this, though, Richard, and that is that to sell what looks like a very pricey program for whatever its merits, the notion that its savings are going to outstrip those costs. That was a pitch I heard on the health care bill that became law, and the same now I'm hearing on this immigration reform bill. That stands to become law.
Going to immigration strictly, it's completely plausible that it'll save money in the long term because we need consumers.
It's plausible that I'll be thin like you in the long term.
Well, it's
plausible, but you know.
Of course, it's likely. I mean, Fox isn't giving you beer on its break. But
yes, it is. But I digress. Continue.
It's plausible because we need consumers, we need employers, we need employees. People think that we're doing immigration reform on behalf of Mexican migrants. We're doing it on behalf of ourselves. That we want these people who are already contributing to the economy to do so in a way that is above ground and legit. And so they're already paying taxes in terms of sales taxes, but what about payroll taxes? And what about all these other contributions that these people are factoring in, these people being Congress, in this bill? And so that's why I say
that's where you get the savings from. And Katie, that is where a lot of them get the savings from. But I also remember the added experience of more coming into the healthcare system and paying into it was going to dwarf whatever added expenses we would have covering older codgers like me and those with pre-existing conditions. That has not turned out to be the case. Hope springs eternal, eventually it will, but it is not. And that's what makes me at least leery of committing to still more federal albatrosses.
Well, and with the health care bill as well, which was also a very long, extensive, jam-packed bill full of goods, so is this immigration bill. And as we go along with these, quote, savings and the spending of this, we're going to find out that there's actually a lot of things in this bill, because not a lot of people have read it, they're going to cost us a lot of money. We found out that there's these pork projects that have put into this bill. I bet we're going to find out about a whole lot more. And so the precedent has been set that when Congress pushes through these large, enormous 1,000+ page bills, there's always more in there that costs money than it saves.
You know, Scottie, stepping back from this particular measure and any big measure is this propensity to want to keep spending. And it's not as if Republicans are loath to it, too. They want to see more defense spending and the like. But there is no appetite at all. I guess I'm partly happy to see at least no one's talking about tax hikes for the time being, give them time. But no one is really talking about getting spending under control. And it's like, hello.
Well, yeah, no, it goes back to that whole reality check. We are about to approach $17 trillion in debt, and I don't think anybody in Congress actually realizes that number. And because in my household, when we start actually overspending and we have no money left in the account and we've run up credit cards, guess what? We cut things. And what's happening with this Congress is they're cutting things like financial tuition assistance to our soldiers. They're cutting our military. They're cutting programs that actually advance America, while instead putting in programs that in reality
we're not making
bankrupt.
a tough decision. Now, you argue we've made too many of these tough spending decisions and hurt too much, right?
We could make more tough decisions. By the way, the Heritage Foundation did a study saying that immigrants would cost our healthcare system. That's been discredited. I don't understand what they're saying when they're saying that it'll cost our healthcare system more.
Well, it's
That
always
they're-
he said, she said with these numbers. I guess the bigger point is,
Yeah.
are you surprised in this environment when we have a slowing economy and everything else? Now, some are blaming on tax hikes. There's no desire to just address our underlying ills that I think lead to slowdown. That is a bloated government that no one wants to unbloat.
We have to do this wisely. There's certain
We don't
parts
do it
we
at
can.
all.
We have to do it wisely, though. That in wise, it's a word they should use in Washington. But we have to do the proper public spending cuts. By the way, sometimes one public job in the public sector brings one job in the private sector. So that if we do this
the
wisely,
private sector
I
we can do
pays
just
that.
for.
disagree on that fact.
The private sector pays for that federal job.
And you're sitting here and you're saying that the illegals don't have any sort of a mishap on our economy. Look at the education system. Look at the health care. The reason why Obamacare has come into action, mainly because we have ERs filled with people that don't actually pay for their ER visits.
Well,